Welcome to another episode of Spiritual Readiness and the Time of the Shift. The frequency of the future Earth is about truth, authenticity, and transparency. With this Facebook group that I've been leading, the Wisdom Council, Ascension Training to lead people to become true spiritual and planetary leaders, I am offering half-hour session to everyone. And I have to say, I've been doing some this week and last week as well, and I'm noticing some similarities that may be symptomatic over what a lot of people are feeling in the light community out there. So I thought I would share that with you. Many of my students and light workers who are also healers on their own right are suffering from a acceleration in the identity that they thought that they were. Many of them have left corporate jobs to go into full healing practices, transition into full healing practices, thinking to themselves that this is what it's much more supportive and much more soul-fulfilling purpose. That may be true, but a lot of them are prematurely claiming mastery for skill sets, services that they're still maybe novice or even having intermediate skills at, yet marketing themselves and presenting themselves as if they were complete masters. Moreover, their copies, what they are presenting to their clients and selling is happiness, let's say, in 12 easy steps. Or if they are business coaches, they guarantee you a certain level of income in 6 months, and so on and so forth. Most of which maybe sometimes can be achieved, but certainly on their own merit, those clients cannot maintain this because the system that they are selling is incomplete. Let me just say this and be very clear. If anybody is trying to tell you there are 12 steps to happiness, run. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. Happiness or any of these kind of established goals, even finding your true self, your authentic self, there is no 12 step. There is no 3 months or 5 months. There's an infinite number of little steps that you have to take. And a lot of time you move forward and then you have to find that you have to retract again, 2 steps back, and then to move 5 steps forward, and so on and so forth. And this is the way true spiritual growth and through self-development actually happen. Now, what's happening to a lot of my clients who've been doing this, and they like to sell their programs, and they like to sell to make sure that they have clientele, and they're portraying them and portraying themselves as such, it's taking a toll. Because right now, because of the light of truth, authenticity, and transparency, their soul is asking for the receipt. Prove to me that what you're selling is true. So what happens to them is that they begin to have either physical problem, crying fits, they don't know why they are crying, they can't sleep at night, insomnia upon insomnia, they're waking up, they don't know where this is coming from. It's basically a dissonance between their action and a truth that their body knows. It's as if their body knows something that their mind is not prepared to understand or to know. So the truth be said is that we are going to the quickening, which is an acceleration in awareness, an acceleration in the elevation of consciousness. I have to tell you, and I've said this in other videos, because of the work that I've been doing with the Dantian, last year alone, I had more than about 17 different epiphanies that caused me to change my perception on how I saw myself. Let's say you believe yourself to be Bambi, and then, and you all of a sudden there's a perception that comes in that you're a little Bo Peep, And then you think you're beloved people, all of a sudden you become aware that you're slightly Cruella de Vil. Now, in all of these shifts in awareness, as they come in, you need to understand the weakness in your spiritual psychology that caused you, first of all, to, let's say, for the Cruella de Vil belief or identity, what was it about weakness in my personality? What fear was I perceiving to be that bitchy or that cruel? Where is the weakness? And then if I repair this, then I now reconcile, and that part, that fragmented psyche no longer needs to affect me. I am now more integrated and more spiritual. Most of these light worker, lovely meaning soul are not doing this deep work. Thus the crises of them having chronic problems, back problems, all kinds of issues, that and suicidal tendencies, suicidal fantasies. I've had a lot of that lately coming toward me, where I had to help counsel people out of this and make them realize that they have to, and the thing with these quick and accelerated changes, my guides have been talking about having spiritual agility, the ability to allow for the new identity to come in, yet at the same time be light-footed enough to jump to the next identity that's about to come. Okay? Most people, the moment they have an epiphany, an awareness that they need to shift from this into that, they now have this new identity, they try to ground it. And if in 3 weeks or another month, another identity comes in, because the light of truth, authenticity, and transparency is being brought in with a dimmer switch. If we were to transition from where we are to that full version of it, most of us would not be able to stand. The change would be too abrupt. So the galactic masters are bringing this energy slowly and gradually, and we are masters of self-deceit. The biggest lie are the one that we tell ourselves. And that's the most damaging. So we need to spend our time very slowly and incrementally and gradually become aware that I am this today, and maybe in 3 weeks and a month, I may not be that. And I have to allow myself to the agility to move, to be light-footed enough to move to all. And the only foundation, the only truth that will hold and stitch all of this together is your relationship to God, however that shows up for you right now. I know for a lot of millennials, the world, God is loaded with religious abuse. Maybe it's creator, maybe it's source, maybe it's an energy, however you perceive it to be. It's that relationship. It's the surrender into that connection that will be the foundation. Everything else is moving. And people are afraid. They are in panic. I know people who are light workers who have done, that I consider to be my peers, that are unbelievable in terms of what they can do, the skill set that they have. Every time they're doing their thing, I am awestruck by their abilities. Yet they're completely disabled and disempowered by this because they don't have the light-footedness that's necessary and the agility to move through this transition. So I am asking all of you to take a dear and profound look at yourself and begin to understand, and particularly if you are suffering from these symptoms that I've mentioned before. Ask yourself, your body, but bottom line is that your body knows the truth, a truth that your mind is not ready to process. You're telling yourself a story consciously in your frontal lobe. You're telling yourself a story that is in dissonance to the truth that's inside of you. Now, try to relax and talk to yourself and ask yourself, what am I hiding to myself? Just take deep breath, universal breath from the core of the earth. Let it move through you, release it into source, and just ask yourself this question: what am I hiding from myself? What am I hiding from myself? Just keep breathing and slowly let that truth be revealed to you. And the moment you become, and it may not be in one try, I would do 12 of these breaths in one sitting. You might have to do this for several days, but at some point that truth will come through. And once it comes through, you will be able to know what you are supposed to be doing, what new identity, what false identity you were holding. And whatever that false identity you were holding, what is the weakness in my soul, in my spiritual psychology? What character or behavioral or psychological fear or flaws made me believe this to be true? And now apply the correction to that so that you can heal and repair that fracture that exists in your psyche. And the moment that happens, that part is closed. Then another one will show up. Think of it the way I've described it to my student, a magician pulling a handkerchief out of his pocket. One handkerchief is pulled, behind it is another one, and another one, and another one. And because the energy of truth, authenticity, and transparency is bathing the planet completely. You may use this energy, if you want, as a wing behind your sails and allow yourself to soar into ascendance, or you can choose to ignore it and pay the consequences, which is this incredible dissonance, this sense of fear and panic that you know that something is wrong, but you can't figure out exactly what. I hope you found this presentation and little video useful. Please like the video and also subscribe below. I would appreciate that. And let me know what you think. Your comments, your questions are important to me. I post a video once a week. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I will talk to you very soon.